Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 2, text 8. Translation. I can find no means to drive away this grief, which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it, even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. Purport. Although Arjuna was putting forward so many arguments based on knowledge of the principles of religion and moral codes, it appears that he was unable to solve his real problem without the help of the spiritual master, Lord Shri Krishna. He could understand that his so-called knowledge was useless in driving away his problems, which were drying up his whole existence, and it was impossible for him to solve such perplexities without the help of a spiritual master like Lord Krishna. Academic knowledge, scholarship, high position, etc. are all useless in solving the problems of life. Help can be given only by a spiritual master like Krishna. Therefore, the conclusion is that a spiritual master is 100% Krishna conscious, is the bona fide spiritual master, for he can solve the problems of life. Lord Chaitanya said that one who is master in the science of Krishna consciousness, regardless of his social position, is the real spiritual master. Kiba vipra kiba nyasi shudra kene noi, ye Krishna tattva veta se guru hoy. It does not matter whether a person is a vipra, learned scholar in Vedic wisdom, or is born in a lower family, or is in the renounced order of life. If he is master in the science of Krishna, he is the perfect and bona fide spiritual master. So without being a master in the science of Krishna consciousness, no one is a bona fide spiritual master. It is also said in Vedic literature, Shatkarma nipuno vipro mantra tantra visharda avaishnavo gururna syad vaishnava srapacho guru. A scholarly brahmana, expert in all subjects of Vedic knowledge, is unfit to become a spiritual master without being a Vaishnava or expert in the science of Krishna consciousness. But a person born in a family of a lower caste can become a spiritual master if he is a Vaishnava or Krishna conscious. Padma Purana. The problems of material existence, birth, old age, disease, and death, cannot be counteracted by accumulation of wealth and economic development. In many parts of the world there are states which are replete with all facilities of life, which are full of wealth and economically developed, yet the problems of material existence are still present. They are seeking peace in different ways, but they can achieve real happiness only if they consult Krishna or the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, which constitute the science of Krishna, through the bona fide representative of Krishna, the man in Krishna consciousness. If economic development and material comforts could drive away one's lamentation for family, social, national, or international inebrities, then Arjuna would not have said that even an unrivaled kingdom on earth, or supremacy like that of the demigods in the heavenly planets, would be unable to drive away his lamentations. He sought, therefore, refuge in Krishna consciousness, and that is the right path for peace and harmony. Economic development or supremacy over the world can be finished at any moment by the cataclysms of material nature. Even elevation into a higher planetary situation, as men are now seeking on the moon planet, can also be finished at one stroke. The Bhagavad Gita confirms this. Kshine punye marchaloka vishanti. When the results of pious activities are finished, one falls down again from the peak of happiness to the lowest status of life. Many politicians of the world have fallen down in that way. Such downfalls only constitute more causes for lamentation. Therefore, if we want to curb lamentation for good, then we have to take shelter of Krishna, as Arjuna is seeking to do. So Arjuna asked Krishna to solve his problem definitely, and that is the way of Krishna consciousness. Nahi prapushyami mamapanujad Itchokam uchoshanam unjiyanam avapya bhumava sapatnam ritham rajam suranam apichadipucham. I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty, like the demigods in heaven. So Arjuna here is stating that he is now overcome with a grief which is so great that he can find no way to overcome it, even with the greatest kingdom that one could think of. After all, generally one might consider that getting a kingdom would be a very nice way to overcome the problems of lamentation. Everybody is lamenting in different ways about different things. But in fact, this lamentation cannot be solved. The lamentation that we are facing in terms of material existence can never be overcome by any means except the means of Krishna consciousness. There are no other means to overcome the lamentation of this material world. Everybody's lamenting, hankering and lamentation. This is the nature of material existence. Everybody's lamenting for that which they've lost and hankering for that which they do not have. And while filled with such hankering and lamentation, people are suffering on the mental platform very much. Actually, there's more suffering on the mental platform than on the physical bodily platform. Well, I guess that depends on who you are. But generally speaking, we can understand that which is in the mind can be even more troublesome than that which is in the body. Now sometimes we speak about suffering conditions of the mind, and we can even include within that conditions of bodily suffering, because in fact the suffering we feel within the body can be mitigated by the mind or can be exaggerated by the mind. For instance, we've given this often as an example. Here one may sit in the room and feel pain on the floor as one's legs come in contact with something hard, or is in a situation which is not very comfortable. But if one is listening and he's concentrating on the speech about Krishna, he forgets all about that painful condition. But if I bring it up to you and you remember it again, then it hurts. So the point is that everything hurts all the time. It's just a question of more or less. All things are some form of pain or another. But the mind has got the capacity to forget some kinds of pain and remember other kinds of pain. For instance, if there's something very special as a pain, let's say you're sitting on a nail. Well, that's also pain. But that kind of pain you can't tolerate because it's something special. Some yogis, they just sit on beds of nails. They have no problem. One nail, nothing. So it's a question of the mind. In fact, all understandings of pleasure and pain boil down to the status of the mind. This, Lord Chaitanya said, it was all manodharma. Manodharma is a way of saying activity of the mind. It means that which is of the mind, experienced in the mind, principle of the mind, not in fact existing outside of the mind. Now you cannot say that something does not exist because it's simply on the mind, platform of the mind. It's very real. Just like the fear that someone may feel within the mind due to some mental disorder is real fear. But it may not relate to the real world in the meaning of the gross world, gross manifestation. Somebody may just feel fear in the mind. The fear he's feeling is real. You cannot say that is false fear. You can say it's false fear when you mean to say it is not related to anything you should normally be afraid of on the gross platform. But somebody may just have fear. And that is also real, because he's feeling it. You cannot feel things which don't exist. Reality and existence, these are synonymous terms. Something which is real is something which exists. Something which does not exist is not real. Therefore, we understand this whole material world is real. It exists. But it is not, in fact, the overriding reality in the sense that it is not what we take it to be. It's like the fearful condition of the material world is not really meant to be fearful like that, because in fact it has no real existence, which may be understood when you become Krishna conscious. Then all of this material existence just disappears, as a bad dream disappears when you wake up at night. So wake up in the morning. That bad dream, that was real. You were afraid, the mental images were there in the mind, the emotions were involved. It was real. But when you wake up, you realize that it wasn't real in the sense that it was just a concoction of the mind, and that the gross platform is something different, and all of those terrible things that happened on the subtle platform didn't really happen in reality. So maybe there's confusion because that which happens in the mind and that which happens in the body, we don't really see the difference so much because the fear or the pain or the anxiety is the same. And that's a fact. In the material world, the fear and pain and anxiety, be it on the mental platform or the gross bodily platform, is the same. But therefore, Lord Chaitanya said in that famous verse, Bhadra Bhadra Gyan Sabhamana Dharma, all these ideas of bad and good, auspicious, inauspicious, better and worse, these are all concoctions of the mind. Because in fact, everything's bad. It's the material world. It's simply a question of how you like to look at things. If you are thinking of that which is good as that which is spiritual, then everything of the material world is bad. And therefore, as soon as one enters into the material world, he'll find there are just so many problems, left and right, and therefore he'll never be happy or satisfied in any situation. Now, of course, we don't want to compare Arjuna's lamentation in the same way. But in principle, it's the same. That he's feeling so much pain from this act which is about to come that he feels that there's no way to counter it, even if he were to win this kingdom and all kingdoms in the whole universe. In other words, what he's saying is that this is a big material problem I have here, and I don't see a material solution. And that's right. There are no material solutions to material problems. Material solutions to material problems mean more problems ultimately in the long run. So therefore, Arjuna was saying, I cannot see an answer. But Krishna will give him an answer, but he will completely bypass all of the arguments that Arjuna gave. He will bypass all of the moral arguments or the political arguments, because these arguments are not the real point. The real point is that there's a job to be done, a mission to be done, a duty to be done, and it must be done, and there's no question of not doing it. Therefore, Arjuna was the man who was supposed to do it. So Krishna was saying, go out and fight. But Arjuna was saying, but I feel pain from having to do this, and I don't see a solution, even if I win the whole kingdom, because he wasn't exactly taking into consideration the spiritual solution. Materially, there was no solution to what Arjuna was feeling, because, after all, everybody would be killed. Everybody, on both sides, except these 5 Pandavas and 2 others. So, there was no material solution. There wasn't any. It was all a failure, materially. But spiritually, it was a great success, because it accomplished exactly what Krishna wanted accomplished. Therefore, simply because of lamentation, or simply because of fears, or simply because of this or that, these are not causes of disappointment or discouragement in spiritual life. What Krishna is saying is that yes, you may feel so many things in this material endeavor, but in fact, it is a spiritual endeavor, and therefore rise above all of these weaknesses of the heart and fight. And act simply because I am ordering you to do so. Now, Krishna specifically used these words. He says, how have these petty weaknesses overcome you? Now, of course, from our point of view, if we also were to know we now had to engage in a battle to kill all of our family members, I think we'd also feel some weakness in the heart. Without a doubt. Devotees are unable to engage in activities for killing others, what to speak of family members. Therefore, a devotee will have an extremely hard time in such an activity. Extremely hard time. Now, we should not think of ourselves as so superior in Arjuna having weakness. Because Arjuna was not only going to engage in killing his family members, but he was going to engage in killing all of his family members. And he had a big family. Therefore, his lamentation certainly makes a lot of sense. Nobody could say, oh, this is false lamentation. No. He had a real good reason to lament. And still, Krishna said, petty weakness of heart. So, Krishna's standard obviously is much higher than we can imagine. He wanted his devotees to surrender to him fully, without considering the various kinds of lamentation which would arise due to the effect of such an action of following Krishna's instruction. Now, someone may say, but how do you know to do such an action, or what can you do when you have such a feeling? Then again, the answer is, in Arjuna's example, you just surrender to the spiritual master. Of course, in this sense, Krishna was acting as Arjuna's spiritual master. And in history, we only find it was Krishna as spiritual master who engaged his disciple in such great acts of wholesale slaughter of men on a battlefield. It is only Krishna who does such a thing. That's Krishna's business when he appears here in this world, to set the balance straight between the demoniac forces and the devotional. Therefore, Krishna may engage his devotees in such actions, but no other spiritual masters since Krishna have engaged in such activities like that. Therefore, I chuckled when I read this, where it said that, there it is. Where's that line? Help can be given only by a spiritual master like Krishna. Nobody else would have been able to give that advice except for Krishna. At this point, the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra, who else could have understood what to do or what Arjuna should have done except for Krishna? Nobody. Can you imagine yourself in the situation where you're faced in such a wild arrangement where all these family members are going to kill themselves, and you're going to have to be the one who says, yes, everybody should kill themselves? Who else but Krishna is going to say such a thing? Nobody else would even dare or think of it. So in fact, only this situation could be helped by Krishna. But because this example with Arjuna is analogous to our situation in the material world, therefore the example is given that one should surrender to a spiritual master who's like Krishna in the sense that he's fully Krishna conscious, and accept instruction on how to do things which even might mystify us, normally speaking. If you can't find Krishna directly to surrender to, which nobody can, Therefore, you find Krishna's representative, surrender to him, and he can give you good instruction. But the qualification there is that he must be a master in the science of Krishna. Ye Krishna Tattva Veda. Master in the science of Krishna means he knows Krishna consciousness. He knows the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. It is not that he has to search out all the time what are the answers to every little problem. He has knowledge and it is manifesting. Knowledge means you've realized it. And you can give answers to problems immediately on the basis of the Vedic literatures. Otherwise, if one is always having to look up this and look up that and check this out and check that out, then what happens is that in fact he doesn't have real knowledge. So real knowledge is something which is based on the principle of Krishna consciousness. When you know Krishna, then you know everything. Yasmaneva viganti sarvam evam vigantam bhavati. He who knows Krishna knows everything. He who knows the science of Krishna consciousness, he is capable of acting as spiritual master. And he can actually give that knowledge to others in turn. So Arjuna was in the situation of being in ignorance, at least from his own point of view. He thought, I don't know what is right to do, I don't know what is wrong, and I need some help. So Krishna was there to help him. So the example is good. When you are in a position where you're bewildered due to the influence of the material nature, open the window there, then one should surrender to Krishna. And when he's in such a condition, Krishna will send to him Krishna's representative, who will be able to answer the questions just according to what is required for that disciple to surrender. Krishna sends knowledge in many forms, in fact. It is not that Krishna has to send the knowledge in the form only of one formalized person. Actually, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find that one who is searching for knowledge may find it in the example of the bird, or in the grass, or in a tree. What to speak of a saintly learned person, or even in the example of a prostitute. These different aspects of the material nature can teach you things. You can actually learn from anybody. Sometimes you may find that a materialist happens to say something in such a way which can teach you something. One who's actually sensitive, he'll learn from anybody who can awaken him something in his Krishna consciousness. What to speak of one who can give direct instructions from the basis of the Vedic literature and wake us up to our real duty of life. So, learning the science of Krishna consciousness is a very big process, because there are so many things to learn, and there are so many ways to learn. So one should try to learn the science of Krishna consciousness in all different manners. Whichever way it comes, one should try to understand more and more Krishna. And when one finds himself bewildered by the effects of the material energy or the arrangements of the material world, one should surrender unto Krishna's representatives and say, please help me out of this great chaos of the material nature. I've been trying to find out a solution for so long, and yet I am just burning here in this material world, trying to search out a solution, but I cannot. Therefore now I surrender unto you. I am a soul surrendered unto you. I am your disciple. You kindly instruct me how to get out of the puzzlement of the material world, the bewildering condition, and go back home, back to God. So these qualifications are there, or found within one, especially who is suffering. We find it rare that somebody surrenders to Krishna who's not suffering. Of course, he may have been trying to surrender to Krishna for many lifetimes. Therefore, even though he may not be suffering in this lifetime, he still wants to surrender to Krishna by nature. Just like if one takes birth in a rich family, or he takes birth in a very aristocratic or Brahminical family, he has no material problems like that. But he surrenders to Krishna because he wants to, due to his previous activities in devotional service in previous lifetimes. By nature, he has a divine consciousness, and he wants to surrender to the Lord. But whatever reason you're surrendering, be it because of suffering condition of life, be it because of requirement of some economic development, or be it to satisfy curiosity, or be it to develop knowledge, the point is to surrender to Krishna. One must get to that point of coming to the Lord and saying, now I am your servant. Kindly instruct me, do with me as you like. Then Krishna, out of his causeless mercy, will take care of the conditioned soul and grant him the ability to have somebody who can help him in Krishna consciousness. Sometimes this may manifest in just a casual way, just like, for instance, in the case of somebody who just happens by and tells you just the right thing at the right time, or in a permanent fashion, in the case of that spiritual master who can bring you back home, back to Godhead. So it is a question of acting sincerely, trying to get knowledge, and then Krishna will actually help us in all kinds of ways to actually get that knowledge. And then we'll be able to perfect our lives by following in the footsteps of that indication of which way to proceed. So the spiritual master will give indication. Go in this direction. So when you follow in that, and you actually surrender and serve in that direction, then one actually makes spiritual advancement. So our Krishna consciousness movement is based on that principle of serving Krishna under the direction of spiritual master. It's very hard to serve Krishna independently. Ultimately, one has to surrender to some authority in spiritual life. You cannot be independent. And in this way, he will gradually perfect his life under the direction of a representative of Krishna and actually become Krishna conscious. Are there any questions? 1, 2, something? Yes?
Is the pressure from Maya on the living entity constant, or could it sometimes be more? Could Maya?
That's also Maya's trick. So Maya may sometimes make it easier for you by lifting the pressure. Then you think, yes, everything's fine. I'm really Krishna conscious. I'm really great. Boy, look at me. Here I go, just doing my devotional service. Ooh. And then when you're least expecting it, then Maya puts a banana peel. What happened? So that's also part of Maya's tactics. So you shouldn't be fooled like that. But yes, sometimes Maya takes away some pressure. Sometimes Maya puts on more pressure. Someday it's easier to be Krishna conscious. Next day, impossible. That's the ups and downs of the material world. But a real devotee, he doesn't stop just because it's hard one day, and he doesn't get puffed up just because it's easy the next day. One day, Paramahamsa. Well, so much for the questions department. Yes? No, go backwards does not affect your acquirement of spiritual advancement. It just means more or less that you are not acting anymore on that platform. Just like I say, a person's earning money. So he'll be accumulating it Of course, this is not a very good example because money gets used up. Anyway, he'll accumulate it. Then, if he doesn't keep accumulating it, then he just loses it because he's spending it, right? So let's say you've got some enthusiasm in spiritual life. So you're acting in spiritual life very nicely. So long as you're moving forward, you're building up on that advancement. Little bit, little bit, little bit. But as soon as you stop, then you start falling backwards and you start using up your enthusiasm in spiritual life, and it gradually becomes less and less, and then you start engaging in material life. So that advancement isn't lost, but it's an account like a trust fund. You can't get at it. It's something else. Your advancement's okay, but what starts diminishing is your enthusiasm, your whole way of inspiration gets lost, and gradually one starts falling backwards and then may go away. But even if he only takes it up next lifetime, that stock is still safe. It's not like the stock of spiritual advancement goes backwards. It's that enthusiasm, that drive, that determination. As soon as you give up that, then you start to fall backwards. Is that all right? Yes.
What kind of role does one's personality play in one's idea of personality?
Ooh, a big role. In fact, most persons bring with them their material conceptions of life into Krishna consciousness. And the perfection of their conception, they think this is Krishna consciousness. We have seen it. People come with different values from different cultures, and they think that the perfection of the value of their culture is Krishna consciousness, without understanding that Krishna consciousness is completely different than the value of your culture. Just like, I could go through a whole description of the different nationalities that are sitting in this room and their different conception of perfection. But I don't know if that would be very wise to do. I'd probably get myself in trouble. So I'm not going to do that. But at least from this point of view, we see very clearly that all these different nationalities, they all have their idea of what is the perfect Krishna consciousness. And yet, it has nothing to do with Krishna consciousness. None of these things. What's Krishna consciousness is you serve Krishna. You learn what's in the books and you surrender fully. It doesn't mean that, anyway, I'm not going to say. I shall control my senses and not get in trouble. Pretty good, huh? So anyway, you can just imagine, you all understand to a certain degree. Speak. Krishna doesn't accept offerings which are not clean. Then that's not very good. Krishna's not very happy. The artist thought that's the way he should look. Artist just painted him that way. They're getting better. no idea. Most fallen persons are not necessarily the Brahmanas. And I don't think you can just say that's what Prabhupada quoted. That's a quote from Prabhupada directly, that it means that all the Brahmanas are the most fallen. That's not what he said. And therefore, I can't answer your question. Yes, there was. No, stars are stars. They're not part of the planetary systems like that. They're a different category. Although some of the stars, the Saptarishi, here we go again, it's the Big Dipper. So you know in Swedish what a Big Dipper is? Nobody knew in German either. In German it was, what do they call that? The Grosse Karte? No, Grosse Wagen, right. That was it. So maybe in Swedish, maybe something similar. Huh? Yeah, those 7 ones. We call it the Big Dipper. English is really, looks like a spoon, you know. Anyway, those are the planets of the 7 rishis, Saptarishis. And those are places of great learning. Places where great scholarship and learning are going on. But they're stars, they're not planets. Now their actual situation is above even the heavenly planets. In that case, those 7 planets, or stars, are above the heavenly planets. So you'll find also in the Bhagavatam it states stars are there, above.
It's stated in the Shastras that there is only one sun. And material scientists, they claim that when we say stars are different suns.
But that's a ridiculous argument that might be brought up between, it doesn't exist between us and scientists. We say sun means that planet, which is the thing that gives the heat and light to us, and its rays are extended throughout the whole universe. A star is also a nakshastra, means is a fiery planet. A planet is not a fiery thing. A star is a fiery planet. Nakshastra is a fiery planet. The sun is that special planet which specifically gives us heat and light and this and that. There is only one sun in a universe. Sun is a special thing like that. The others, they may give off whatever light or whatever heat they do, but they're not as powerful as the sun.
So what we see up there doesn't only belong to our bubble, or is there inside the other bubbles?
I don't know, but you can certainly, most likely by logic, see through the coverings of the universe. Although it may not be. Therefore, I say I don't know. Because actually, according to Jiva Goswami, there's 7 layers of the universal coverings, starting with water. And that layer is very thin. I once made an estimation according to the projected diameter of the universe. So the layers of the universe are also the same width as the diameter of the universe. So there are 7 layers, and each one 10 times bigger than the other. So you just do algebra. You call the first layer X. The second layer is 10x, the third layer is 100x, the fourth layer is 1000x, the fifth layer is 10,000x, the sixth layer is 100,000x, the seventh layer is 1,000,000x. So then you get 1,111,111 or 110x equals the diameter of the universe. Then you say x equals that number, 1,111,110, divided by the diameter of the universe, and you have the distance of the width of the first covering, which is supposed to be water. So it's something like 96 miles. So, 96 miles of crystal clear water, you can see straight through it. Then the next layer after that is heat, or the fire. So in this way, one would think that it's see-throughable, except for the gross ignorance around the whole thing. One cannot say. One could speculate galaxies are other universes in bubbles. The scientists did. But one cannot exactly say. But at least a little algebra shows that the first layer is not very thick.
Does the major demigods like Brahma have two resting places?
Summer home, winter home. They have more than two. Vacation home. Weekend home. Home away from home. Get away from it all home.
Thinking that to establish Maharaja Dharma must require also something from those individuals who would be part of it. So I was thinking what kind of personal qualifications is necessary for one to be able to take it.
What?
I mean, to speak very frankly, everyone also one is the greatest, so then one has the conception of Brahma, Kshatriya, etc. And for example, I could think like humility must be a good quality. It's supposed to be able to accept
Elaborate on what? This is the most confused question I ever heard. What's the point? Or is the point trying to figure out what we are? Is it? I don't think so. It's the easiest thing in the world. Because it's already you. What's the problem? If it was something that wasn't you, it'd be tough. It'd be tough to accept that which was something different than you. But you know perfectly well what you are. You just don't like to admit it. Let's say you're a complete Sudra. And somebody walks up to you and goes, "You're just a big Sudra." Then you're going to go, "What? But if there was the right kind of, let's say, forum, the right kind of mood was developed, of sincerity, honesty, then if somebody asked you, "Sir, what are you?" you would go, "Well, I'm just a big Sudra." Because you know it better than anybody. We know ourselves better than anybody, what we are mainly qualified as. But we just don't like to admit it. Why? Because then the other guy's going to say, "I'm better than me. I'm better than he." Then there's going to be the better and worse. "Well, I'm a Brahmana. You're just a Kshatriya. You got to listen to me." Or then one's going to have to surrender. One has to actually develop some good qualities now. Because if he's actually a Brahmana, he has to actually start acting like one. One doesn't like that either. Or there are so many reasons why one just doesn't want to face the truth. So dishonesty is the problem in the Kali Yuga, that people are becoming more and more dishonest. So they're dishonest even with themselves. And they refuse even to accept their own good quality, whatever it may be. They refuse to accept their own quality. And they especially hate it if somebody else were to tell them what it is, even if it's true. And that is a lack of humility. Therefore, a good way to do it, you just sit down, everybody can just look at each other and tell each other what they are. And if everybody else disagrees, you know you've got a problem. But actually, it's quite a painless thing. It's really a riot, isn't it? The way each one of us think that nobody else knows us at all. I mean, we've been sitting together here, more or less the same group for year after year after year. Now, do you really think that the others don't know what we are? It's absurd. Everybody knows who everybody is. Perfectly well. And they'll even know, oh yeah, this one is... That's pain. When you try to be something you're not, it's pain. And when you try to be what you are, no problem. So, in order to actually accept the Varnashram system, we have to accept honesty. And honesty is tough. Not because we have something to hide, because there's nothing to hide. Everybody knows anyway, practically speaking. But it's a question of just admitting to yourself that you are just what you are and you're nothing special. That's probably the most hard thing in the whole creation, is for us to admit to ourselves what we are. I guess that's called self-realization. You know what you are, and it's so difficult. Everybody always likes to be something that he's not. In this way, he can stay in illusion. It seems to be easier. I'll never figure it out. Someday you might be interested to sit around in a group and get into it. All right, what are you? Well, you really want to know? Yeah. What are you? Well, might be incredible. Yes. Because everybody's a Brahmana. Well, do you think you join Krishna consciousness to learn ignorance? You join Krishna consciousness to learn knowledge about Krishna. Maybe you learn the knowledge very nicely, and you are acting very nicely as a Brahmana. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to chain up the most Brahmanas. But if you don't make it, don't lament. It's not that we throw you out the door. You can act in some other way. But we try to educate the highest first. Everybody's got the possibility.
Those others Varna was also connected to the ashram. Therefore, everybody the same thing. Unless you're historically Varna, unless you're Brahmana, and you get married.
Well, it's not that we say it like that. We say that that if you're naturally situated in a certain Varna, that implies a certain ashrama. But we never said if you're not a Brahmana, you have to get married. But naturally speaking, it will be more conducive to your spiritual advancement in the long run. There are ways to say things, and there are ways to say things. we don't like, when you take things which are a little bit subtle and smash them into a bottle. Ah! You're not a Brahmana. Get in there. Stop. Put that dhoti on. Here. Wipe. Stop. One just gets like horror visions of what varnashram could turn into. Oh. Ah. Guys with whips. Get into that ashram! Into that pit! Oh. One has to maintain some subtlety of, give a little freedom for people to wake up themselves. Ultimately, everybody does. All right, Harish.